Come on. You want to come outside with me? Huh? Yeah? What is it? What is it? Squirrel! Let's go work on a dozer today, guys. Alright, so you guys have by now have seen the dozer I bought. I do, I feel like a little kid. This is so much fun. How many of you like to wrench on something when you have to versus when you don't have to versus you want to? So, okay, so give me a little update on this dozer. You guys saw me buy this dozer, right? And that was, I brought it home. Luckily, I have on the side of the house here. This is our rental. Those of you that have been following the channel. Before we start on that, if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button and hit that bell notification. It's free, and you guys can follow us as we escape the city. So by now, those of you who have been following the channel know that we closed escrow on our house. We're out, and we are temporarily in a rental here in California, escaping California, as I say. I have to fix a road. I have a half mile of dirt road that when it rains, it turns into a big giant swamp, and you gotta have four-wheel drive to get through it. So this beauty right here is all part of the whole road improvement project. I've had a few people comment like, "Why aren't you moving up now? Why are you waiting? You know, why do you staying down in California with all the crazy crap that's happening down here?" Before we can get up to our place, I know I've got to fix the road, and I couldn't pass up this deal. I've always wanted a dozer, and this was a smoking deal. I have a bunch of things I need to do to it, but the reason I bought it is that the undercarriage, those of you that don't know anything about dozers right here, this is what they call the undercarriage. So there's a roller right here. These are the tracks, obviously. That's the rear drive gear. This is the front idler wheel. And then underneath right here are 5 rollers. Now, I looked at all of those rollers, and let me show you those right now. All of the tracks are in really, really good condition. The rollers are in great shape. So if we look at these tracks right here, we can see that these are what they call, this little line, this bar right here, and this bar and this bar. These are called grousers, and this is what actually bites into the dirt. When these tracks were new, these grousers were only about another quarter-inch taller, maybe. So they're about a quarter-inch tall right now, and they're maybe a half-inch tall when they started. These are what they call flat pads, and these are these do minimal damage to the dirt or, say, pavement. If you have to run this thing across some pavement, you really don't want to. But these dozers were generally made, and this thing has a 6-way blade on it. So if you look over there, there's a hydraulic ram over there, which will allow this blade to tilt like this. And then it has a pivot point right here, which allows this blade to turn and pivot side to side. And then of course we have the up and down. So that's 6 different directions that it will do. When I went and looked at the dozer, as I was playing with the 6-way blade, one of the hoses burst. That's pretty typical and normal for an old machine like this. 1970-ish, 65 to 70s when the 350 was made. And this is not a B or a C, it's the original 350. Super clean machine. It needed a little bit of work, and I'm going to show you some of that stuff that I've done. So stay tuned for some more videos coming up. By now, hopefully you guys have already seen the last video that I put out, which was the cutting edges and the rippers. What was amazing about this dozer is that almost everything is still available for it. It's harder to find, but you can still find everything. So that last video, I was so excited to be able to put all my new blades, my new cutting edges and my rippers on that I didn't think I could get. I had looked at it's an older International Harvester, and the guy was selling it up in Washington, all complete, running, everything good condition, everything working, and with a complete extra chassis with a motor and transmission and what they call a transaxle. He was selling the whole thing for $8,000. The problem is you can't buy new parts for those anymore. There's hardly anything available. Everything's in a junkyard. This is a John Deere. John Deere still has a lot of the parts. I can buy the clutch packs on Amazon, which is crazy. So when I saw this and I bought this thing, and the guy sold it to me with new hoses for $6,000, I couldn't pass it up, and it was running. So these tracks right here, all this stuff was in great shape. So you guys can see that roller right there. You see these edges right here. This edge right here is still nice and sharp, and it's not bent over and worn down. That's a really good sign. If you guys want to take a look at those teeth are still nice and sharp, and they're not worn down. And there's no thing you want to look for is you want to look for this surface right here. If it's like worn down, or these edges are really worn over, then this is the chain. And this chain right here, all of these edges on the inside are really, really good condition as well. So the pad bolts to the chain, and you can see these bolts right here, right? So the edges of this chain all the way down were in really, really good condition underneath here. And like I said, that middle roller was in great shape. And I haven't been able to see the bottom roller yet. I haven't taken any of that apart, but you can see it's got grease fittings right there. And this is a 5 roller. They came 4 roller and 5 roller. Now this roller right here, I'm gonna have to get underneath, so stay tuned for that one. I think the grease fitting on this one is gonna be on the other side. So I'm gonna have to check that out. You can see down in here, you can see that's the roller right here, that this grease fitting, that roller down inside there corresponds to this one right here, and I think the grease fitting for that roller should be on the inside. But all of these, I was able to get grease in in 2 of these. The third one I have to change. So this one right here, I couldn't get any grease into. I have to change that one. The most expensive thing to replace on a dozer is going to be what they call your undercarriage, which is all of your tracks, your pads, your chain, your gear, the idler, the rear gear, and those rollers. Those are all expensive. I can still buy these pads, and they came with 5 different styles of pads. They came with these low, minimal grab pads, which are going to work great. Work just fine up there, unless I get into some snow and ice. And then I may be welding on some bar stock. If we weld a piece of bar stock on here and raise this thing up, and that will actually give me more bite into the snow and the ice and the mud. So a lot of guys will weld on. I saw a guy on Facebook, on a Facebook dozer forum, where he had taken pieces of rebar and used that instead, and the rebar has that annealed surface, which helps with the side to side. But he didn't go really high. That way, the higher you go, the more it tears up the dirt. So I don't want to tear up the dirt a whole bunch, but I'm not worried about tearing it up a little bit. So we'll see how these things work out, so stay tuned for that video. Everything up here was great. The undercarriage was in great shape. I don't have to do anything with that except grease it. And this one, I might need to tighten this one up just a little bit. It's a little saggy right here, but it just needs to be tightened just a smidge. There's a spring right here, and here are those are the grease fittings in order to pump this as a hydraulic ram, which will push on the spring, which pushes this idler forward, which will tighten up these tracks. But as you guys can see, there really wasn't anything I needed to do to this thing except for the gauges and the exhaust. Everything else was intact and complete. So let's take a look at that. So this is the muffler for the dozer, and it has a mounting bracket right here, and then it's got a clamp right here. Those are the 2 points that it's attached to. Clamp was perfectly functional and in great condition, but the mounting bracket had broken loose on the 4 corners. So what they had done is there was a 2-inch pipe that came out of here that ended right about here, and it was supposed to go, and what it is, it came through the engine cover, and then the pipe that would go on top had a flange that would go over the top of it with a clamp, and that was the pipe that came up. Okay, so here, right back here, that is a nice clean cut hole, original stock hole, and that's where the pre-cleaner comes through. Well, as you guys saw the other video, this is the way it came, and it was kind of leaning to one side. This is a spark arrestor, and they welded it. It's a 3-inch pipe. They welded it right to the top of the sheet metal right there, and then they had the riser with the flapper on top. Okay, I don't need this. You guys leave me a comment and tell me what you think. I'm gonna hang on to this because I can basically clamp it on, but I basically took this off. So here is my riser right there with my flapper, which I wanted to keep, and it's got a new bolt in there. And then here is this is the spark arrestor. Okay, so I'm going to be taking this, I'm going to be cutting this out. I'm going to cut this off, and I'm going to clean up the hole, and I'll get some paint and repaint this. But this slid over the top of this 2-inch, there was a 2-inch pipe that came out of here. Okay, this muffler right here is a stock John Deere muffler. That's what came on the engine. It's a 3-cylinder diesel engine. And they wanted $525 just for this piece right here, which was really expensive. You can still get it. Though a lot of you guys were out there saying, it's a John Deere, they're really, really expensive, all their parts. Well, when you guys go check out the video where I replaced the cutting edges and the shanks, I was super, super elated on how reasonable the prices were on all of those parts. I was expecting to pay well over $1,000 to find some of these original parts, and I didn't. I spent max $700 for all those parts. Well, this was one part that was expensive. Probably part of it because it's such a specialized part, and they're becoming rare. $525, and that did not include the riser that went on the top of that. So I went to my muffler shop. He welded on my mounting bracket back on for me, and then cut off the bad pipe that was there, and then did a flange, did a reducer, welded that sucker back on, and now I have my riser, and I can actually cut this down if I wanted to. And then I've got my standpipe with my flapper on top. I'll tell you what, guys, one thing I've learned really quick while working on this dozer is make sure when you take a bolt apart, if there's a hole underneath where you're working, either put a rag down there to make sure you don't catch something that you drop, or make sure you put your nuts and bolts on top of a rag somewhere in a safe place, because the crevices and crannies on a dozer are many. Repaired muffler on with the new standpipe, and got the upper riser with my flapper. Let's see how this thing sounds. Okay, so you guys heard that. That's probably it wasn't idling super smooth there. I mean, it idled fine, but the RPMs were kind of fluctuating a little bit because I had the fuel filter taken off, and so there might be a little bit of air in the line. So I'll have to let it run and purge the system of the air in those lines. But it sounds good. The exhaust sounds great. It's not super loud. It was actually louder before. and now it's a lot quieter because there's no leaks in the exhaust, and it all goes through the standpipe on top. So it is fantastic. You guys want to go back and listen to one of my other videos, you guys will hear how loud it actually was. It wasn't actually that bad, but it's a lot quieter now with the exhaust leaks. There was I mean, it wasn't just a leak, it was an open hole basically what was going on there. So you guys leave me a comment and tell me what you guys think about that spark arrestor, where I should keep it or not. This dozer came out of an orange grove, and so I can understand why they would have a spark arrestor on the top of that thing, especially going through some of those orange trees. It was dry down where it was at, down there by the Mexican border, and those orange trees are full of oil, and you know that oil in the leaves and whatnot are extremely flammable. So they put an extra spark arrestor as they were driving this dozer through the soft dirt in between the orange trees to make sure that they didn't catch any of the trees on fire with the low overhanging branches. I'm not going to need that because I'm not going to be in a deep dark forest running this dozer. I'm going to be out on an open road. So I don't really see the need for a spark arrestor, especially having a good functional muffler on here. So you guys leave me a comment at the bottom, tell me what you guys think on that, and I'll see you guys on the next video. I got 3 or 4 more things I'm going to be doing to this thing before I take it to Idaho in a couple of weeks. So stay tuned for those videos, and thanks for watching. See you on the next video.